Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make your very own toolbox radio. This particular one that I'm making is just for work, something nice and sturdy. So, first thing, you want to pick up a toolbox. You can use any toolbox you like as long as you make sure that it's going to be big enough for everything you're going to want to put in it. So in this case, this particular one I picked up for about $12 at Canadian Tire. It's going to work for exactly what I need. So we're just going to take out this layer here. Don't need that. So you can see inside, this box is going to be real easy to use because it's nice and flat. So next, you want to get yourself a power supply. So in this case, I picked up just a computer power supply. So if you take a look on the side here, we have all of our cables. We're going to make this into a 12-volt supply. So this is a 450 watt power supply, and it runs on 10 amps. And our voltage here, we're going to make this a 12-volt power supply. So we're going to convert this into what we need to run everything in our box. So the next thing you're going to want to get is a head unit. So I picked this one up, and it's Bluetooth, has USB, auxiliary, SD port on it, so I can listen to my music however I want. And right on the top here, there's a wiring diagram, so it tells you exactly how everything's going to be hooked up when we put our speakers in. There's an alternate plug-in for an amplifier, and also where we're going to plug in our antenna. So I picked this up from China for about $25. Works really well. So the next thing you want is to get your speakers in order. So I picked up these speakers. I got this set here. This box was $5. These speakers here, these two are brand new, never been used. And they also came with these fancy covers here, which I'm going to put right on the front. I think that'll look nice and sharp. These other speakers were also $5. So I just pulled them out of the unit that they were in. So I think those will work just fine. Also, when you get your power supply, you want to make sure that you have a plug for it. I got this from the thrift store. It was $2. You want to make sure that it is also 10 amp and it's compatible. And then we have our antenna, which I got from China. Takes a while to get here, but it only cost me $4, so it's all good. So this is just going to plug into the back of our unit, and we're going to get some reception. Also grabbed a fan to help the airflow. You can see this is 12 volt. We're going to have to adjust that a little bit. We're going to have to cut it and make it connect to our power supply. I also grabbed one of these fan covers because the last radio I made, I accidentally stuck my finger in the fan, and well, that just did not feel very good. We also have these sort of covers that go on the back of the speaker. This is if you're using a tin toolbox, you want to attach these to the back to help create that nice clear sound. So you're also going to want to get a pair of just wire strippers. You can get these pretty cheap at the store. I think these were like $4 or something. They work pretty good, and they'll save you a lot of time stripping the insulator off of your wire. So this is everything that we're going to be putting inside of this toolbox today. So let's get started. First thing, we're going to get our power supply, and we're going to cut off all these little cable ties that are holding all these wires together. So go through and just cut each one off. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back. So now that I've got all the ties off, we're going to create our switch. So here you can see there's a green wire, and then on the end there's this black one. These two are going to control the switch on the back of the supply. So here I have a paper clip that I've just unfolded. So we're going to check and make sure that this is the switch, what controls the switch. So I'm going to take the green one, just plug one end of the paper clip in there. It should be about the fourth one in. And then we're going to plug the other end into where the black wire is. Okay, so that should be firmly in there, not too tight. So we're going to go ahead and turn it on and make sure that these two use the switch. So there you can see it starts it up. Now I use a power supply with the switch, mostly because I like to be able to turn it on and off when I'm not using it, so it doesn't draw any electricity at all, because it's like when you leave a computer on, it's just going to constantly be running. So now our power supply is ready to be molded into our 12-volt supply. So we're going to take these and cut them right off, but we're going to keep this black one and this green one separate. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a piece of electrical tape on it just to make sure that I don't confuse them with anything else in there. Alright, so now that we have all of our wires cut and these two separated with the electrical tape, I'm going to go ahead and start separating them. So what you want to do is separate all of the colored wires from the wires that are just black and yellow, okay, because we don't need those, all those extra wires. So you can see that I've separated them all right here. So the only ones you're going to leave off to the side are the black and the yellow, and then the one that controls our switch, which I had already taped together. So I'm just going to tape these together so that I don't accidentally cut any that I actually need. And now we're going to go ahead and just cut these. Now I'm going to cut them kind of a little bit longer just in case you ever need to use them again. And you can keep these wires for anything you might use, another project. They're still perfectly good. Usable wires, good for soldering little things if you do that kind of thing. So all these extra wires, we don't need them. So just put those off to the side. And then here you can see all of our wires, though, they're exposed. So what we're going to have to do is sort of insulate each wire to make sure that they don't accidentally touch each other. So you can do that with some electrical tape or a dab of glue from a hot glue gun. But we'll get to that after. That's just so it doesn't accidentally short out your supply. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create our 12-volt supply. So what you're going to do is separate an even amount of yellow with an even amount of black wires. Now you're going to have lots of extra black wires. That's normal. They always put more than what we're going to need. But to create a power supply, you need equal amounts. So I think in this case, let me just count here. I think there's 6 here. Let me just double check. Okay, so I have 6 yellow wires. So you want to take now 6 black wires. Perfect. Okay, so you want to put these together. All the extra black wires underneath, we're going to cut those. Oh yeah, let's put our switch over to the side also. Make sure we don't accidentally cut that. We're just going to set those over here, and then we're going to cut these black ones. These we don't need. Those are just like the other ones we cut off. They're completely unusable for what we're going to be creating. So you can just, I'm just going to tape that to the other ones. And then you can just go ahead and cut that off also. Perfect. You can set those off to the side. And now I'm going to show you how to insulate the ends. Just cover all of our bases just to make sure nothing goes wrong. Okay, so here I'm using the glue gun method. So I just have a hot glue gun, and you're just going to basically take a dab, just dab it right on the end of the exposed wire. This is so that they don't accidentally touch and short out your supply. You want to do this with all of them. So it might take a minute or two, but it's still faster than using electrical tape on each one. Alright, so now I'm going to show you how to connect our switch so that it stays constantly connected. So we're just going to go ahead and take that green wire that we had set aside and the black wire. We're just going to loop them together so they create a nice tight connection. So just kind of spin them together. I put them face to face. I find that the connection is much better, much tighter. You can give it a little tug and it's not going to fall apart on you. But just to be extra safe and secure, I'm going to actually solder this together. So here I have some solder wire, and I'm going to just take my soldering iron here. I had to wait for that to heat up. And I'm going to go ahead and solder this. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can do it the simple way, which is just put the solder right on top, melt it on. That's okay, but it's going to take you a really long time because you're going to need a significant amount to make sure it doesn't fall apart on you. So usually what I do is I make a sort of solder ball. I'm going to show you how I do that. This cable's in the way. Let me try this again. Alright, so you're just going to sort of melt the solder wire into the soldering iron, and you're just going to basically create like a little ball. It doesn't have to be huge, just enough to make a nice solid connection. So this is probably good. Just go ahead, you can set that right on top and just melt that right on. Perfect. So you can see there, it's nice and tight. Give it a little tug. It's not going anywhere. So that's what we want. So what I've done is I've just taped it up, put a little electrical tape on it just to make sure it doesn't come into contact with anything in the supply. Now I'm going to go ahead and test it. Good idea to always test things as you go, just to make sure that they work correctly, instead of having to backtrack if something doesn't work right. So let's turn it on. It's working. Perfect. So we did that right. Alright, next step, we're going to actually make the 12-volt supply. So you want to separate all the black wires and all the yellow wires. So pretty simple to do. So I've just taped up a couple spots on them because these are pretty long. And I'm just going to use my wire strippers here. This is where they come in handy, and I'm going to strip the wire. So you want to strip off about an inch, and just going to want to stick it in the wire stripper just to where it feels comfortable around it, not too tight. Perfect. And you shouldn't really need to pull too much. It should just slide right off, just like that. Perfect. So we're going to want to do all the ends of all the yellow and the black wires. So now that it's all complete, we're going to go ahead and connect them all. So you're just going to kind of even them out. Then we're going to twist them nice and tightly together. Just do a little bit at a time. You want to make sure that you don't pull any of them off. Perfect. So there you go. We have our negative terminal. Now we're going to go ahead and do the yellow wires. Just like this. Perfect. Same thing. Just twist them just a little bit at a time. There we go. We have our positive terminal. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to make these nice and secure just like we did with the switch wire. So I'm just going to go ahead and solder this. I probably don't need to show you again, but I guess I'll do it again. So you can do it just right on top like I showed you the first time, or you can make the little solder ball, which is what I like to do. And I find it also much faster. So just go like that and then just sit it right on top. You want to make sure you get both sides too. So one on the top, one on the bottom. And then we're going to do both terminals here. So now that that's finished, you want to leave some exposed for you to attach your wires to. So everything is ready to go, and our power supply is ready to be utilized into our toolbox radio. So that was the hardest part. Let's work on the fan. So just going to go ahead and cut the plug off here. don't need that. We just need the negative and positive wire here. Just snip that right off. Then I'm just going to separate it and strip it down. So you just want to strip off about 1/2 inch off the wire just to attach to our terminals. So you can see I've stripped off the wire here, and now that's ready to go. Now we're going to want to work on our speaker. So you can see here I have the speaker and the tweeter. In this particular case, I'm not going to be using the tweeter, mostly for lack of room, but you know, you don't really need it. So I'm just going to use these 2 wires here. I'm going to strip those down. Again, strip off about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. You want to make sure you can get them around your terminals. And so if you want to add the tweeter, that's just the yellow wire right in the middle there. But in my case, I'm not going to be using that. So if you want to, just connect all 3 wires. Now this is our wire harness for our head unit. So here we have all the different wires, and the wiring diagram explains to you what they are. So this one has a fuse inside, so if you happen to blow out anything, you can replace that fuse. Usually solves a lot of problems. And you can see when this got sent to me, most of them were actually pre-cut already, so you can just pull the insulator right off and they're ready to go. So I don't have to worry about trimming them, except for this one here is not trimmed. So I'm just going to have to do that. Okay, so that one's trimmed off. You want them all to be around the same length. This blue one is actually for an antenna or an amplifier, if you have it like an amplified antenna, not an amplifier. But in my case, I'm not using that. I'm just using a basic antenna, which is going to be good enough for what I need it. So what I've done is I've sort of mock connected everything. So I've connected my fan here to my power supply, connected the speaker and my head unit. Everything's going into the power supply. So I'm just going to show you here. You want to connect your yellow, that is your memory, and then your red wire, which is your power, into the yellow of the power supply. So anything red or yellow you want to put into the yellow supply here, and then everything that's black is going to go into the black terminal on the power supply. So I've just put a cap on the end there just to hold everything together. And then I've hooked up my speakers here. So you can just look on the wiring diagram, depending on where you want the speakers to be, which ones control the front, which ones control the rear, so on and so forth. So just match them up and hook them up how you want them. So what I'm going to do is just turn it on, make sure that it works. Like I said, you always want to test everything before you go through with it. So, well, fan's blowing pretty good. So we have power. I'm just going to go ahead and turn on the unit. Looks like it's working. I plugged in my little antenna, so I'm just going to see here about getting a station.
Canadian X-Homie Awards, brought to you by Ink Addict Apparel. Shop online at inkaddict.com. Modern Skate and Surf for the best deals on snowboards, skateboards, and derby roller skates. Michigan's original skate shop since 1979. Online at modernskate.com. Michigan Graphics.
Alright, now I'm going to show you how to set up the speakers so that we can put them into our toolbox. So all I've done is just set it down, outlined it, and just with a pencil. And I've also taken a compass just from a little math kit that I had and put the pencil in there. And then I just lined it up at the edge and made a circle around it because the inside of the speaker is circular, so we just want it to slip right in when we put our speaker in. So just kind of find the center, and you'll be able to find that when you line it up with all the edges. and then just spin it around, make yourself a circle. Now I use the pencil because it's easier to erase after, especially if you've made a mistake or anything like that, instead of making a really dark mark on there that you can't get rid of. So then the speaker will just slide right inside like that. And we're just going to screw it in. It's going to be good to go. So I've done this for the other side also. I've just drawn the square. I'm just going to have to do my circle with my compass. Next, what I want to do is make my outline for my head unit. So you want to take your head unit, you just want to kind of place it where you think you're going to want it to sit. Now you got to remember that you have your power supply underneath this. So you got to make sure that you have enough room for the power supply. So I take a ruler and measure exactly how much space you need before your head unit. And the head unit is just going to sit right on top of the power supply. So that's going to work out really nicely. So I'm going to show you the outline I made. Just a second. So here's the outline that I made, and all the outlines I made for my speakers, and then my outline for my head unit. And then what I've done is I've just made some holes here so that I can start to cut. You can use an X-Acto knife, or if you're using a metal toolbox, I recommend you use a drill, a power drill, and start your hole and then cut it out, either by hand or a jigsaw. So you can see on the top, I also made speaker outlines. And the reason I used a marker on this one is because it's not even, and these speakers are going to be covered up pretty well, so you won't be able to see any of that. And then on the back, I made my outline for my power supply. So you can see I've made two separate cuts because one is going to be for my switch and my plug, and the other one is going to be for my fan. And then right here, I have my alternate fan. That's just to get the airflow going. So you can see I've made all my cuts and it's ready to go. So I'm going to show you how I made this for the power supply. So I've taken the supply unit and I've just kind of outlined exactly how tall it's going to be. So you can do that using a ruler. I'm going to show you what I did just because when you try to push it up against there, it's just not good enough. So I've taken a piece of paper and I've just kind of made a stencil. So I've just kind of placed it on top and then just kind of drew an outline of how exactly it's going to sit inside the box. Just get this out of the way, and then to show you right here, I just kind of traced the stencil on top and then I made my incisions. So I've done the same thing for the speakers that were on the top. This is only because it wasn't level on top. It's got kind of a bunch of curves in it. So I made the stencil, same thing, cut out the circle that I made with my compass. And I just kind of placed it right on top. Just lined it up where you want it to sit. And you want to make sure that before you draw your circle, you tape it down so that it doesn't move around on you, so that you get a nice good outline. So I'm going to show you what I did here. I just took the front off the head unit here, and then I just placed it where after I measured how tall the power supply is going to be, where the head unit can sit. So I've traced the inside of this cover, not the outside. You want to trace the inside of it to make sure that it covers up any kind of gapping that you might have. So that came in really handy to use, just to measure that out. So now we can go ahead and we're going to start our cutting. And you can use a hand hacksaw, something like this if you wanted. It's going to take you a long time, but pretty easy, no power tools required. If you're using a metal toolbox, I recommend using a jigsaw or something, which is what I'm going to use. So here I have my jigsaw, and this is the blade that it came with. It's meant for wood. It's pretty rough, not really that great. So I went out and bought some of these, These are actually meant for iron and metal. I didn't buy the plastic ones. Now I prefer these because they give you a nice smooth finish. So that's what I'm looking for because I want this to look really good. So I've cut everything out. So you can see here it's all ready to go. I've got my power supply cut out here where my fan's going to be, and my external fan, and everything is just looking good. So now we can put everything in. Put down some double-sided tape to hold in my power supply so that it doesn't slide around on you. And I've gone ahead and placed my power supply in there. So you can see that looks pretty good. Just open it up so you can have a look what it looks like inside. So it's nice and flush against the edge. And I've got my terminals here. And then I've just taped down my switch here so that it doesn't go anywhere. And I've just tucked the extra wires in behind there. So I've gone ahead and put my fan in. So that looks pretty good. You're going to want to make sure that you break off some of the corners there. I had to break off the corners of the one side. So if you do that, make sure you put it in the correct way that you want the fan to blow. So I put my speakers on the front with the covers on them. So that looks pretty good. Just going to open it up here so you can have a look what it looks like inside. So the speakers stick out a little bit. It's alright. Looks good. So I've gone and pushed my head unit in here. So you can see I put the cover on. Looks good. I also put some double-sided tape underneath that on top of the power supply so that it doesn't move around on you. And now I put my speakers on top, and this is the completed unit. So I'm just going to turn it around here so you can see the back, what it looks like. I've erased all my pencil lines and everything. So yeah, looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty sharp, and it's no bigger than any other radio. This is actually much smaller than those Milwaukee radios, and they get much louder, believe me. This radio has no limits. So I'm just going to open it up, let you look inside. Everything's connected. So I've just followed what it said on the wiring diagram for hooking up my speakers. So just make sure you check that out. You can tape everything down if you want. I've hooked my antenna up with a piece of double-sided tape here so it doesn't go anywhere. And then I've got my fan here blowing in, and then so that air is going to keep it flowing, and then the power supply fan is blowing the air out. So you just want it constantly circulating, especially for someone like me because I work in a factory. So it's going to be pretty hot in there. You don't want it to overheat, especially if it's running for 8 hours. Because this is drawing a lot of power. This is really good if you want to hook up some amplifiers and, you know, really get the party going. So I'm going to give you a sample. Unfortunately, it's not going to be very long, you know, all the privacy things, just to show you that it works. So that's it. And thanks for watching my video, and I hope you enjoy your very own toolbox radio.